Okay. Now can you hear me?
Yeah, now I do.
All right. Okay. Well, I apologize to anybody who was watching for roughly the first 5 minutes of this, in which they got to watch me just ramble like it was a silent movie, but without intercut panels with text. Welcome to the Snakepit Roundtable. Now with actual sound. It's amazing what technology advances allow us to do. With me today is our co-panelist Joe. How are you doing today, Joe?
Good.
How's your cat?
She's good.
Excellent.
Say hi, Puma.
Well stated, Puma. I think we should all consider that. Diamondbacks didn't have a great week today, or excuse me, this week. Going about 2-4 on the week, picking up only one win against the Indians in 1-0 game, and then one win on Friday against the Marlins. Other than that, they were kind of battered around in general, especially today's game where they lost by a pretty disappointing 10-3.
Did not enjoy waking up early just for that.
That's the worst part about East Coast games, is you can't sleep in, and it's just not worth it for that kind of a drubbing early on. Any thoughts that you, out of a week like that? It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot you can take positive from it, but did you have any thoughts about it?
That are positive?
No, negative works too. Let's be perfectly fair here. It's really hard to get positive thoughts out of the Diamondback season at this point, other than it's coming close to an end.
I enjoy watching some of the rookies play, but that's about it that I can think of that's good anymore.
It's true. We've even had the joy of Paul Goldschmidt taken away from us, so...
Before the year began, I kind of came up with what I could do every year. What's the best thing that can happen, and what's the worst thing that can happen. Pretty much everything on the worst thing list has come true this year.
It's pretty rough when your pessimism is all that's being rewarded, but it definitely seems to be how the Diamondbacks are playing. It is kind of nice to see some of the rookies come up, even if they aren't necessarily quite performing the way that we had wanted them to. Jake Lamb has had... he's had some okay games. He's had some not great games at the plate, but I figure it's kind of at this point in the season, all we've got is the ability to give them some playing time and at least let them adjust to see what the big major leagues are like. And Then when they're back in a game and it actually has some sort of meaning, then they might be used to it.
It's a better test for them offensively than Reno would be right now.
That is true. I think that statistically speaking, the Snakepit would probably bat about 250 in Reno. I think that's what the adjustments are. Yeah, are there any rookies you've seen up that you're particularly excited to see what they can do for us in the future?
Everyone has seen me how excited I was about Jake Lamb coming up. Since he started playing really good, we've all been doing the free Jake Lamb hashtags for the last couple of months, and finally happened.
It is always kind of nice, especially when you see. I liked the game a couple nights ago when. Oh man, who was it who pitched in Ohio and his family was all there?
Andrew Chafin, I think.
Yeah, Chafin. I always like seeing when somebody gets to make a big start in front of their family, and I know sometimes people are annoyed with the camera constantly cutting to the crowd, but baseball's a game, and you just have to recognize that the families, the families are excited, the players are excited to get the chance, so why try
think they
to?
said that there were a ton of people he went to high school with out there too.
That's got to be pretty nice to be able to show off like that.
Right where you grew up and you make your debut there.
Yeah. Let me. Yeah. Who else? Who else have they brought up? Xavier Paul doesn't seem like he's done too much.
He's already been with a few teams, I think.
Oh, okay. I couldn't remember if he had or not.
I think I saw he was with the Reds last year when I checked on Baseball Reference.
Oh, that's right. He's 29 too. So. Braden Haggins was brought up too. Didn't really have the best start to his career, getting a loss, but
Today was better, at least. After Delgado got pounded again, he calmed things down for the end of the game.
it's always an important thing to be able to at least pull the whole game out of a tailspin like that. Maybe the offense, hypothetically, if our offense could hit and get runs, would at least have had a chance.
The blowout just became less blowoutier.
Yeah. It at least allowed a little bit of dignity to be returned. But, I mean, since once the game gets that high, once the lead gets that big, and we've already had trouble scoring like more than about 2 runs lately, 10 is just out of reach entirely.
I remember back when they made the trade in 2013, they were saying, "Oh, we want to be less reliant on one guy," and really, it's just Goldschmidt being awesome and a bunch of other random dudes trying to follow him and maybe occasionally get a hit. But really, it's just Paul being awesome.
Yeah, Paul Goldschmidt in so many ways has been just such a major piece of the team, and I mean, granted, part of that is because the guys who they've brought in to try to fill and feed into that, or like fill that gap behind him, like Cody Ross, Mark Trumbo, everybody. It's just not hasn't been working. So
Even when they get in guys who were good at one point, they always just get worse or get hurt.
I guess maybe they shouldn't have built the stadium on that old Indian burial ground. Let's see what else has been going on in baseball. I mean, the Diamondbacks have they're still holding on scrappily to their fourth place fourth place in the division. They head out to Washington next, again, keeping on our East Coast swing, to face the Nationals. And then they fly back cross country to home to face the San Diego Padres. If we struggle to get...
Their offense has actually been a bit better lately, too. The Padres.
Yeah, the Padres are looking a little bit more respectable, and if we just struggled against the 500 Marlins that much, then I have to worry quite a bit on what's going to happen to us on a four-game trip through Washington.
I'm expecting a sweep right there, to be honest.
That would be kind of just especially disappointing given the thoughts of how hard it is to sweep a four-game series. But yeah, I'm not sure I would be surprised if we came out of Washington and had just dropped four straight to them. Which, yeah, this team doesn't really inspire a whole lot of a whole lot of confidence at this point.
You're making me dead inside just watching these every day.
And that's right, the AZ Snakepit, the finest place for your upbeat thoughts and opinions on baseball.
This website is getting me through this season.
Yeah, it definitely makes it a lot easier to handle when you know you're not the only person suffering through the game like that.
And because that everywhere else where you try and go and complain, they're just, oh, you're not a real fan, you're not positive enough, they try hard every night, that's good enough.
They try hard, but you know what? It doesn't necessarily mean that it's any fun to watch.
Participation medals for everybody, man. That's what's important.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're going to pay however much you're paying for tickets, you're just happy there's a game out there, right? You're just there for a $25.
Having fun.
You're just out there for a $25 18-inch corn dog with bacon. And a pound of French fries, which that just seems like a lot, but...
Hey, Trumbo missed a bunch of balls trying to dive for them, but at least he's trying. At least everybody's having fun.
Yeah, it's, it's baseball. You just kind of have to get to the point where, I mean, baseball is always hard since it's the longest season. It's 162 games, and there's so many opportunities for you to just get frustrated and annoyed with all of it. But it's better than not watching baseball, I guess. Sometimes.
This year is something that makes people that are watching it say, hey, I'm a real fan. I sat through 04 or 2014 or X, whatever bad years and X's players. Hey, I sat through most of that. I'm a real fan. Badge of honor.
Next time somebody complains that you're not a real fan, just ask them if they can name 3 of the Diamondbacks' albums. There is something that you had mentioned, just talking about the idea that baseball, dealing with the season, it is a little easier to get through with the help of something like the Snakepit, social media, that sort of thing. I'm always kind of interested, this is something I've been thinking about a lot this week, interested about the idea of how social media and technology has really changed how news is spread through baseball, through sports fandoms, basically. I mean, I don't know that all of them are. I mean, I don't know that it's always good because sometimes it's just someone will jump up with a rumor and everybody picks it up and carries it, even if it's completely nonsensical. But I mean, back back in the day, when I was a lad, no, 10 years ago, even before the Snakepit started. I don't know if the Snakepit ran in 2004. I think I found it in 2000. No, the
I
Snake. Oh wow, the Snakepit is that old. I've just really have been realizing how long I've been on this website. Um, say 13 years ago, back when the Diamondbacks won the World Series. Uh,
Those were the days.
yeah, you had to wait a lot. It was a lot slower for news to propagate. And if you ever want to see something interesting, go search the 2001 World Series and find the USA Today website for it, because the coding has not changed since 2001. And then you'll be reminded what the internet looked like back then.
I remember having dial-up until '08, and that was miserable.
Oh, wow.
'08 or '07.
That would be kind of terrible. I think the last time I had dial-up was 2002. And that was rough. You know, always having a roommate. It was when I lived in an apartment, and sometimes one of my roommates would open the and pick up the phone and call people just when you were trying to be on the internet. Break it up. But
it would take half an hour to load a video that was 1 minute long.
And the idea of sharing videos was completely bizarre at the time anyway. But yeah, no, I mean, I think it's just interesting how the internet itself changes how people spread news, how quickly we learn about things. One of the first things that I really remember being a big internet story was the Josh Burns firing. I remember being on Twitter, following the news of that, writing this up. I mean, I don't know if you... How old are you, Joe? I'm sorry.
23.
23. Okay. I mean, so you at least remember the internet before Twitter and things like that.
Yeah, I've been going online since 2000, 2001, I think.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, how do you think it? Do you think it's a good thing that it's changed like it is? And also, we have Soko joining us as well.
What's up?
Yeah. So either of you, do you have any thoughts about how technology is changing how news is spread, rumors are reported in baseball?
Baseball specifically?
Well, I mean, or just in general, if you want.
Well, I mean, as anyone can attest, I mean, this would be more of a general statement. Whoa. Hey, I'm in the frame now! But as anyone can attest, after any sort of local or national tragedy, the first hours, if not days, and then you go on Twitter and it's just, you know, I heard this, I saw this, we looked at his Facebook profile and he listed these books, so therefore he must be this sort of political persuasion. Is it terrorism? Is it a lone act? Yada, yada, yada. And it's just people are throwing out whatever they can because they want to be first. And that's, like, Twitter and social media does a lot of things well. And informing people about things that, I think I need to mute myself because I need to close that window. But it's informing people about things that may not be normally reported on, like the recent events in Missouri, but it can also force journalists to want to be first and push things out as quickly as possible without doing their normal journalism steps where you want to consider the source and verify the information and try and get the information that you need to actually make it accurate. And it's going to be the same in baseball, the same way during the NBA free agency period started. There were all these rumors flying around. There were even people making fake accounts that were tricking NBA writers. And the NBA writers weren't even bothering to double check simply because they wanted to get it out. So there is that sort of reckless side, and it may just be something that as people get used to this phenomenon, we'll start getting a bullshit detector and being able to filter it out the same way, hopefully, when people look at an Amazon review or any sort of online review, they can kind of filter out the ones that are way too positive and the ones that are way too negative and figure out where the middle ground is, or if there's only negative reviews, well, then maybe it's a crap product. But if you have only one negative review, it could just be that that person got unlucky. So I think I've rambled and gone in like 20 different directions, so I'm sorry.
And going back to that point with the trade deadline, I forgot the name of that guy with ESPN who tweeted the fake report, but then he pretended that, oh, I was hacked, and then he changed his Twitter name.
Yeah, his response was to be like, oh, I was hacked, and then he deleted his account, which is hilarious, but also a little bit sad.
I think that's kind of unfortunate because, I mean, it feels like there needs to be, while there is the need for reporters when they talk about things to be, to verify their sources and to make sure that they're not just throwing out the first rumor they hear. I mean, I think there also needs to be there needs to be accountability for those reporters. So it's kind of terrible. That is kind of one of the problems with things like Twitter, where they can delete their comments or delete their tweets, or they can say, "Oh, I was hacked," even if people don't believe it. It gives them some sort of claim at deniability, which is unfortunate. It seems like they need to at least stand behind what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, normally, like, let's say a newspaper. Is that a cat? Is that the Rally Cat?
Mm-hmm.
Rally Cat.
She doesn't want to be held right now.
Yeah. Well, that's very cat-like behavior. I feel you, cat. I feel you. Normally you would publish an article in a newspaper or a new magazine, and if something was incorrect in it, even if it was just some minor detail, but if there's something incorrect, then they'll run a correction, and they will own up to their mistake. And if the whole thing is fabricated, or if it's just built off faulty premises or bad sources, then they may have to completely disown the story. So there's a lot more credibility in there, a lot more upfront about it. If you go back and read old newspaper articles online, if they put their corrections directly on there, like New York Times does, it'll be right there at the end of the article, and you'll see exactly what they changed. And that's also a problem that people have levied against some of these new media and news sources that have come out, like Vox, which, full disclosure, not that any of us get paid, so who gives a shit about SB Nation's feelings, but Vox is owned by the same people who do SB Nation. They came out with this concept, these explainer websites, where they would update information as things was going on, but you would have no idea when it was actually being updated, and they were getting information wrong, and they would just go back and stealth update it instead of owning up to the fact that, no, we got it wrong initially. And that's kind of the same situation here, where these writers can just basically delete the tweet or disown it and just act like nothing happened, and we're just supposed to continue to say, oh yeah, well, there's a credible source here. Yeah, they must know what they're talking. No, they're just reporting whatever it is that they find. Rabble, 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 rabble.
Obviously, someone has some very strong feelings about this.
And then there's also There's also people that have fallen for websites like The Onion. I've seen national media fall for it. I've seen a lot of people online fall for it. It gets reported like it's a true story. And then I
Yeah,
have to explain to people, no, that's from The Onion. It's a parody website.
yeah, the number of people I've seen who have linked, I mean, like, a lot of people know about The Onion by now. It's been around for years, decades, at least. But yeah, it's some of the more obscure ones, like, that I've seen where people will link to something like the Daily Current and not realize it's satire, or something like, yeah, no, I mean, there's enough websites out there that do satire reports and not necessarily well, but people are quick to jump on it.
I think that's one that I saw once where someone I knew fell for one saying like high schoolers were going to do testing for being gay or something like that, and he fell for it. And then I had to explain, no, look at the stories on the side. That's not a real website.
Yeah, or even if you're not sure on the validity of the original website. I mean, there should be, I would hope, if you've been on the internet a certain amount of time, you would just be able to kind of filter out the websites that are more bullshit than others. Like, I know Huffington Post oftentimes tries to present itself as a legitimate website, but they publish so much crap on there that it's essentially clickbait nonsense. So if you read something somewhere and you think to yourself, that's too good to be true, or that's too insane to be true, or that seems shocking, there's a Google search bar in every browser now. Just search that information. If it's true, chances are there's going to be more than one article about it, and probably from legitimate sources instead of Ebok Times or whatever it is that you pulled up. And it's like seemingly people don't understand that there's a second step you can do to do your own verification. They just read it and it's like, well, that fits my worldview. Oh no!
It only takes a few seconds to verify it. It's not that hard. Just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the problem is, I think it just takes a few seconds to verify it, but that's a few seconds I could spend being really angry instead. So I think it's much easier to just, I don't know, share it and tell people so they can be angry too.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the people that share these news stories, they don't have the same responsibilities that the original writers do to get that information correct. But there's no, like, if you're sharing bad information and you're sharing these stories, then you have no, people don't have any expectation you're going to go back and own up to the fact that you're spreading bad information. When I think there should be a certain amount there that if you're going to, even if you don't know that you're doing it, if you're spreading stupid or bad information, then you should be able to go back and say, sorry guys, my bad. But instead it's just like, I'm just going to post another thing on my Facebook wall, or I'm going to reblog another thing on Tumblr, or I'm going to retweet another thing on Twitter, or whatever the sharing mechanism is on your preferred social network, except for MySpace, because I don't think it actually had a sharing mechanism on that. I don't remember. I don't think it did. I don't know.
Nobody cares
uses it
what
anyways.
MySpace has done since Fox bought them. Or Timberlake, whoever it is now.
Yeah, I think Fox spun it off.
That site died real fast.
Well, MySpace had its purpose, but then Facebook kind of came around and was like, "Oh, hi, we're doing everything that you're doing. We're trying to do, except for like having banned websites or movies that would just put their preview on MySpace instead of having a legitimate website of their own." And I think actually they can do that on Facebook now. So
I think they can, yeah.
yeah.
One of the smart things that Facebook and Twitter have done is that they've found a way to link your profile on there with pretty much everything, and as annoying as it can be sometimes, if it's linked to everything you can possibly look at, it's so much tougher to move on to something else, because Facebook is already linked to it. Twitter's already linked to it. It can't die now.
Yeah, they're pretty much intertwined everywhere, like some horrible clenching octopus trying to worm its way and control the internet for us.
And now I can just look at this old school newspaper I have where they have this little bar graph about how much more popular MySpace was than all the other social networks out there, and then I just laugh at it. It's not that way anymore, guys. Back in 05 or 06, I think.
I think Tom has that same newspaper clipping in his kitchen. He looks at it every morning and just cries.
I think he cashed out, though, so he's probably pretty happy. I'm assuming. I don't know. Maybe he does cry every day. Maybe he's just a crier. And you know what? That's fine. No judgment on Tom.
Tom only has Facebook now.
Wow.
I feel like we've veered wildly off any sort of baseball topic.
What? Veering wildly off top of a baseball topic in a roundtable?
I know, but this is like a semi-serious or even a fully serious conversation, but it had virtually nothing to do with baseball. Like, you can connect it to baseball, but...
It started related to baseball.
Is
All
there
right,
anything
we
really
can.
say now besides they're bad?
They're so bad.
I did have another baseball topic. I did want to go back to. Just on the off chance we wanted to discuss baseball. And that topic today is overly reactive umpires. I don't know if either of you saw the clips from the Mariners game today. Yesterday, basically, last night's game, Seattle Mariners manager, it's hard to say in a row, Lloyd McClendon was tossed out of a game for arguing balls and strikes, which...
I think I saw the headline for that, but I didn't read the story.
Oh, basically, what happened today is, I don't remember what inning it was, but the McClendon's in the dugout. There's a it was a check swing call. McClendon's not happy with it. What he does is goes like this, like he's just upset about it. Meanwhile, out at third base, I think, the same umpire, Tony Randazzo, repeats the gesture towards McClendon and then throws him out. McClendon hadn't done anything other than just make a hand gesture, hadn't stepped onto the field at all, hadn't exactly argued. Do you guys see this as a valid ejection or as a overstepping of the boundaries of the umpire?
Pretty dumb.
Sorry, I'm watching the video trying to figure out what's going on.
What do you think, Puma?
Same. So what gesture was he making?
He like a this gesture. Like it was just like a
Like a oh, you guys. You again, you old scamp.
It's like that's a terrible call.
Oh,
yeah, that's pretty bad. I don't know. It's one of those things that it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. Like, I know umpiring can't be an easy job for a variety of reasons, and you are attempting to have some sort of moral authority on the field, and you need to have some sort of legitimacy. But I feel like those sorts of things undermine it, kind of like a couple of years ago when I don't remember the umpire, Shitface McGee. I don't know. It was when AJ Hinch was still managing, so I guess that should give you a time frame. The short time he was managing, and he got thrown out.
I just want to memorize that.
Yeah, And he got thrown out for something, and it wasn't even really that bad. But the umpire that threw him out was just overreacting so much, where it didn't make any sense to the crime. Where this guy was getting in Hinch's face and just like yelling at him, and spitting in his face, and it was just like, what? And it's just. It's like some of these guys feel they have a small amount of authority and they feel they have to impose it. Not unlike certain events in our middle part of our country going on right now. They have a small amount of authority and they think that they have some sort of monopoly on violence, to horribly paraphrase Max Weber. And
oh, you recorded me in McDonald's, I'm going to arrest you.
right, it's just like,
to be fair, he was actually arrested for asking which door to leave out of.
Yeah, but I mean, any of those sorts of things where I understand that it's a tough job and that you probably take lots of crap and there's a lot of stress involved with it, but there does get to a certain point where you have to realize that the amount of authority or violence that you are trying to impress on the larger community, in this case umpires on the field, the players and the managers, you have to realize that your actions are going to have larger consequences. And in this case, I think they're just overstepping their bounds and they're being giant dicks.
I was looking up the AJ Hinch ejection, and I've learned two things. First, I think it was Jerry Crawford who tossed him out of the game. Second, AJ Hinch, when he's arguing, takes his hat off and gestures like he's throwing it down to the ground, like a very vehement move, but he still holds on to the hat, which A, is good for keeping it clean, B, means he can make the same overdramatic move later in the argument. A+ work, AJ Hinch. I approve.
So he did one thing right as a manager.
And he did it well. Yeah, no, I mean, and Tony Randazzo is the umpire who threw out McClendon. He's kind of known for being a troublemaker as umpires go, which is, frustrating that there is an umpire who has a reputation for being willing to throw managers out with slight provocation.
Like good old Angel Hernandez.
Oh, yes. Angel Hernandez. My theory has always eternally been, if I know an umpire's name, there's nothing good about them.
Personally, I'll take being a overreacting jerk over being incompetent, although both of them are pretty bad.
I would submit that the two are not mutually exclusive.
I think this kind of goes back to what we were talking about previously with reporters needing to be responsible. Shit. I just lost my train of thought because I was looking up Joe Crawford in the NBA. And he's another example. In the NBA, Joe Crawford, inevitably, in every game, especially if it's a playoff game, he has to insert himself into the situation and make it about himself. And there are some umpires that, for whatever reason, they do that. And they need to be held accountable in the sense that if you're the type of umpire or referee that, for whatever reason, gets off on putting all the attention on yourself, the NBA or MLB or whatever sports organization should see that and perhaps, I don't know, have consequences to that to be like, yo, you need to step back, you're being a dick. And actually have, now, there's a certain amount of difficulty because they do have a union. It's not very powerful, but it is something. So they may feel like that's not a fight that they particularly want to pick. But the same way when umpires get calls wrong, if they're flagrantly wrong, then there should be some sort of punishment. Maybe not a huge fine or any fine at all, maybe not any sort of suspension, but there should be something, like a driver's license, a mark on your record where you do it enough times, maybe you need more training, or maybe you're just simply incompetent.
There was this book a few years back that an ex-NBA referee tried to write about how corrupt they are. Sometimes I think this one though is already in trouble once for betting
Yeah,
on games, I think.
yeah, yeah.
And
That
they had to
guy.
cancel it because the NBA complained, I think. But I would not be shocked if every part of that book was true from the parts we've seen of it.
No, I'm kind of split on those sorts of things because on one hand, you almost feel like, well, it almost feels like there had to have at least been a degree of truth because the stories that he was telling were matching up fairly well with events that had happened in recent NBA playoff series to the run up to the book. But then there's another part of me that's like, he has a strong motivation to want to maintain his character because the FBI is about to put its foot down on him for basically gambling charges. So he has a strong motivation to want to make himself seem like a good guy, not unlike good old whistleblower Eric Snowden, where what he did may have been noble, but the way he goes about it, it almost makes it feel like he's just trying to protect his image at this point, as opposed to doing any sort of real good deed.
Well, and the other thing that comes, the other example that comes to mind for me was it Jose Canseco who has a book
Yeah.
about like, I mean, yeah, I didn't read the NBA referees book. I know the one that you're referring to, but
I think it didn't come out anyway. It got canceled because of the NBA.
That's not strictly true because I worked at Barnes & Noble when it came out, and we actually had it. We had it as a bargain remainder for like years.
So
because no one bought this stupid book.
Which is weird because, come on, the NBA gave you a lot of great press for your book release, man. If you can't turn that into a best-selling book, then maybe you need to go back to something like gambling or being an NBA referee.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that, like, when you see a guy like Jose Canseco who is talking about all these steroid cheats who he thinks they're in the game, but at the same time, I mean, it's hard to take him seriously sometimes because you're like, but you're one of them too, or you were. I mean, allegedly, I don't remember if he was ever actually caught or anything, but it just kind of gives it a feel almost of, okay, well, I'm going to drag people down with me. And then it just kind of seems to put the whole thing into a different light. I guess I'm pretty much just saying the exact same thing Tim did, but not as well.
If Canseco's book, Juiced, has an advantage, is that there was, the sort of like whispers and rumbles of steroid and PED use in baseball, but there wasn't any real explosion yet, and if anything, his book caused that explosion. So even though I'm sure it was mainly to sell books and get money, because he probably needed the money, I mean, this is a guy who once managed the Yuma Scorpions independent baseball team. So I'm not surprised he wasn't hard up.
I'm not entirely positive, but I believe that he may have been on at least a couple of VH1 reality shows.
Right. So he was probably hard up for money. There probably was not any sort of good intention from that. But he wasn't doing it in response to people suddenly alleging that he had used steroids or anything. It wasn't in reaction to anything beyond the reaction of, oh crap, I need money. So it is slightly different in that sense, but it still kind of makes you question the motives about it, because he probably knew that I need this to be as inflammatory as possible, otherwise it's not going to sell books. If I just come out and say, well, yeah, I used them, and I don't know, I guess I saw other people, but I didn't know anybody. I heard. And who cares about that? But if he comes out and he says, yeah, 75% of the people, or whatever his numbers were using it, and I saw it all the time, and everybody had a needle sticking out of their butt. It was just, it was wild times.
Which, constantly having a needle sticking out of your butt would have to make it difficult to sit on the bench.
Hey, Canseco don't sit on the bench. Canseco starts.
Yeah. Well, it is getting pretty late, so I think we're going to wrap up on that note. Thank you to everybody who watched us. My apologies for our technical difficulties at the top of the show. I can only guess that it was actually an Illuminati plot to hide the secrets that I was intending to reveal to you. And then Joe showed up, so just in time. I'm not raising questions about Joe, I'm just stating things and then kind of trailing off and letting you decide for yourself. But in the meantime, visit the Snake Pit. Follow the Snake Pit on Twitter. Follow the Snake Pit on Facebook. Go rewatch videos we've done on YouTube.
Follow the Snakepit home.
Follow the
Watch him
Snake
through
Pit
his
home.
windows.
Yeah. Tap the Snake Pit's cell phone. Unless
Go
you're
on
already
Google
doing
Plus.
that, Joe.
Everybody has Google Plus. It is a vital part of our everyday lives in North America. We're on it. That makes it good.
I believe I already had a discussion at one point this season about who uses Google Plus for anything on Google Plus. So, for myself, for Joe, for Soko, hope everybody has a great week, and don't let Joe get you before it's too late. Bye!